And good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Creative Industry Summit Series. Today we're talking about the traveling exhibit celebrating the Black experience. Today is Wednesday, June 4th, 2025. My name is Mark Brown, the Folk and Traditional Arts Director for the Kentucky Arts Council, and we're part of the Tourism, Arts, and Heritage Cabinet. We will begin today's webinar with a land acknowledgement, which is a formal statement that recognizes the unique, enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous people and their traditional territories. Today, we stand on ground occupied by ancient peoples whose history has been lost, but whose legacy remains. The evidence of these ancient people can be seen all over Kentucky through the mounds and artifacts left behind. Today, over 170 American Indian tribes are represented by their members living and working in the Commonwealth. Let us honor those who were here and those who are here now and build on the legacy of stewardship of the land that they left for us unto the seventh generation. And now, we're excited to announce that the Kentucky Center for African American Heritage, also of the Tourism, Arts, and Heritage Cabinet, is working with the Kentucky Arts Council in 2025 to take the annual art exhibition celebrating the Black experience on the road to locations across the Commonwealth. The exhibit is now on display in the center's gallery in Louisville until about June the 19th. It will travel in July to Gateway Regional Arts Center in Mount Sterling, in August to SkyPack in Bowling Green, in September to the Hazard Community and Technical College in Hazard, in October to Berea Arts Council in Berea, and then in November and December to Kentucky State University in Frankfort. We're grateful to have the two exhibit curators here with us today, Aukram Burton and Julia Youngblood of the Kentucky Center for African American Heritage. So Akram's going to tell us more about the annual Celebrating the Black Experience exhibit, and then Julia will present two visual artists from this year's exhibit, Nahla Joy of Louisville and Derek King Jr. of Lexington. So welcome and take it away, Akram.
Thank you, Mark. I first want to say I'm really excited about this partnership. In terms of the work that Julia and I have been putting in, it's so rewarding to see that the art now will be shared throughout the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Just give you a little background information, because I'm sure Julia will go into a lot more detail about what we've been doing. The Kentucky Center for African American Heritage, the mission is to preserve and promote Kentucky African American heritage and the heritage that we share with the African diaspora. And we do that through culture and arts. We have exhibitions, performances of all types that we do that basically is educational and also a way of sharing, about our culture and learning about our culture. My background is a photographer, filmmaker, so I've been involved in the arts for quite some time, and I really do see art as a really wonderful tool to convey the things that what our mission is about. We've been, organizing this exhibition for quite some time, over 3 years now, and we've had other exhibitions. This is just one of several exhibitions that we have in a year period of time. But this one is totally dedicated to community-based artists throughout Kentucky and outside of Kentucky. We've had people who have exhibited in, celebrating the Black experience from the islands, St. Croix, Cuba, Trinidad. We're hoping that we will attract more. If that happens, we'll probably have to get a larger space because we're getting a lot of artwork now that we have to, mount. But that's a good problem to have. And then last thing that I'll say is the beautiful thing about celebrating the Black experience is that we try our best to pair young up-and-coming artists with established artists. And it is just phenomenal to see how impactful that is on those up and coming artists who didn't have the confidence uh, prior to the exhibition, but it was a really big boost for them. And that's exactly what we want to try to accomplish. We believe that art is for everyone. It's not an exclusive situation. It's not for rich people. It's for people, it's everyday people. So I'll leave it at that, and Julia will go into a lot more detail about celebrating Black experience.
Thank you, Aukram, and thank you, Mark, for hosting this webinar, as well as working with us to make sure that this exhibit can travel this year. It's been really incredible to work with you, and we know that just by the partnership this year, we had probably double the amount of submissions than we had had in the other 3 years prior. So partnerships are definitely key in this area and around the globe. It's been incredible to help curate this show. And I've got two incredible artists with me today, Derek King and Nahla Joy. And we're going to talk about their work in as much detail as we can cover in an hour. And we also invite your questions. So if there's anybody listening in, if you want to send us some questions, we would be glad to address those and make sure that your voice is heard in the conversation as well. So I'll just say a few words about the show. This is our 4th year, and as Aukram said, it's grown quite a bit. I believe we had over 25, almost 30 artists this year and 45 pieces. So we had to get real creative about how we could hang that show and make sure we could really give space to each artist, but also make it a true celebration of the diverse voices and perspectives that are emerging in our community right now. There's a lot to be said, a lot to be explored, and it's important for artists to be able to have a platform. We have the exhibit in the Elmer Lucille Allen Gallery, which is a dedicated space and a climate-controlled space within the center. And as Akram said, I think this year we've had 4 major exhibits in this space, and we just hope to continue to grow that over the next coming years. So with that, I want to invite Derek and Nahla into the conversation. Um, Derek, could you tell us a little bit about your work and anything that you'd like to share about what it was like to be a part of the exhibit this year?
Yeah, for sure. First and foremost, like I said, I just want to say thank you for having me. Thank you for accepting my work. You know, growing up, my work's always been about like representation and, showing, a plethora of different cultures, showing like, telling my stories, our stories, the community stories, stuff like that. And so it was definitely an honor to be a part of the show. It was just great to be around so many different artists. Like I said, it was a great show. And it's just great, like I said, just to be around so many great artists and see like all the work that was put into it and everything. But like a little bit about me, like I said, I'm an artist based out of Lexington, Kentucky. Um, I attended the University of Kentucky, and I got my Bachelor of Fine Arts with the focus in drawing and painting. I did that back in 2015. Um, I currently still work in Lexington as a full-time artist. I do a lot of commission work, a lot of murals, a little bit of graphic design, and then I'm also a full-time tattoo artist as well. Um, and in my work, I like to tell the stories of the voiceless pretty much. I like to celebrate the Black American family life, just kind of like touching on that culture, just pulling from my personal experiences growing up, as like I said, as well as like shared community experiences. And like I said, a lot of my inspiration comes from Black American family life, but not only that, but also like hip hop, rap, anime, cinema, film, stuff like that. And I just like to use all of those to kind of like tell stories and tell narratives to kind of celebrate, comment, and kind of bring awareness to certain things. But yeah, that's pretty much it about me. So.
Thanks, Derek. We'll show your images in a few moments, but Nahla, would you like to join the conversation and share a little bit about yourself and your art?
Yes, absolutely. I was really thankful to be a part of the show. It was really nice to just engage with other artists and see, I guess, their perspectives while living, in either Louisville or different parts of Kentucky. And I just thought it was just a very interesting, combination, like, because everybody had something different that they were, I don't know, engaging with. So, oh, sorry, my video is off. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was just about to ask you about that. It's good to see your face.
Thank you.
Yes. So Nahla, would you like to describe your work a little bit?
Yes, I like talking about buildings in Kentucky and relating that to personal, personal experience and, um, sorry, just, sorry, I'm trying to find the words to describe, um, oh, and just presentness. So I'm trying to make really vivid imagery about spaces that are occupied by Black families. And it doesn't have to be necessarily one specific person that relates to it, but and don't go past that front porch. A lot of people maybe from the South have heard that growing up and relate to it. So it's not necessarily an isolated experience, but I like talking about communities and spaces where people live. That's the main priority.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Mark, would you pull up the images that we have available of Nahla and Derek's work? As we're going through these, Derek, if you want to say anything about these pieces, that would be great.
Yeah, for sure. This piece specifically is called How My Hair Look. It's just kind of like a play on, young Black women and girls getting their hair done, like say at their grandma's house or sitting in the living room, getting their hair braided or on the front porch, things like that. It's just like a homage to that, just kind of commenting on those. This piece right here is called Graceful. Um, this is kind of pulling because I also grew up in church. My family is from the church and stuff, and so this is just kind of like commenting on we're all sinners, kind of like saved by grace type of thing. And it's just us falling from grace, but we're kind of like led away from the world or whatever. And so it's just kind of like paying not necessarily a homage, but kind of like commenting on like church life versus like family life and the world and stuff like that. This is actually one of my personal favorite pieces. This is called Cranes Flying By. This takes from, like I said, like all that hip hop, the anime and film and stuff that I was talking about earlier. It's kind of like my younger self looking at my older self and then my older self looking back at my younger self in a way. And so it's just kind of celebrating that, that culture, that hip hop culture that I grew up in, paying homage to that, and also paying homage to like the anime culture that I grew up in. Because I used to do both of those things at my grandma's house, and that's kind of like my earliest memories of actually doing art and like drawing and painting and stuff like that. And so um, that's just a little bit about that one.
And this is your piece, Nahla. Can you share a little bit more about this piece?
Yes. I think for me, I grew up being taken care of by members of my community, or just people in general. Like every time I've needed something, I've always ended up receiving that. So even when I pass by like homes I'm not necessarily like in or living in, I still feel familial towards them. So I try to express that maybe familiarity using color and the close-ups of housing that I depict in paintings.
And tell us the scale of this piece.
So this one is, I believe, 6 feet by 4 feet.
Yeah, part of why I was really interested in having both of you participate in this conversation today is that scale is such an interesting part of the visual arts. And your piece, Nahla, is the largest piece, and Derek, some of yours were on the smaller side, and they lend. They just bring a different feeling and a different energy into this space. And Nahla, yours became like a portal as you enter into the gallery. So maybe you could both talk a little bit about scale, your work, and what decisions go into how big you're working and what that's like for you. And especially Derek, since you also do mural work, maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. For me, it's like a lot of my work is it's kind of based on not necessarily my work, but the scale that I choose. It has a lot to do with I guess the subject of what I'm like painting or what I'm drawing. Um, because sometimes I don't necessarily feel that the piece has to be large to where it's inviting, I guess, in a way. But I also so the way I like to look at it is like they're like kind of like little windows into like the Black American family life. And so sometimes they're big windows, sometimes they're small windows. And and so it's just all kind of depends. Like if I feel like that like it needs to be on a larger scale to where I want people to be, you know, not necessarily overwhelmed, but like invited by the piece, want to be drawn into it. Then I'll go big, but also like the smaller pieces sometimes like invite you in as well. They also make you want to come close to them and make you want to kind of peek through that little window and kind of see what's going on inside. And so, um, I mean, it really all just kind of depends on the vibe for me and what I want to say. But I wanted to comment on Nyla's piece because, like you said, Julia, when I walked into the gallery and I saw that piece in person, it was like, man, I want to sit on this front porch. You know what I'm saying? Like it was very inviting and it had like a very like warm feel, especially with like the pink undertones and stuff coming through. And so, I mean, like I said, like large scale pieces, they're great just because they can have that feeling and they can like invite you in and want to make you like sit on that front porch like in that picture. So I just wanted to say that. So yeah.
And Nahla, would you like to talk about the scale of your work?
Yes. So for me, I already like creating invented space or like making things move around on a surface to where like the sky looks like it is going back into space and the house looks like it is coming forward. And so when the porch was mentioned, I think that's like really helpful for me to understand that that's coming forward and people are able to enter the space and it becomes immersive. And for me, that's a big reason I scaled up because it makes sense to like, if it's life-sized or like the way I see it the first time can't always be captured in a photograph. So for me, I use a photograph as a reference, but I ultimately deviate to like try to understand the way I perceive that space without the photograph or like how that actually feels to interact with an image that's bigger than like that small image that I tried to attempt to capture the space with. So for me, using a larger scale is an attempt to get closer at like capturing a space.
Nice. I'm also wondering about what it was like to walk in, maybe just a little bit more detail, what it's like to walk into that exhibit and that reception when we opened up in April. And how did people respond to each of you in terms of your work, and how did you respond to the rest of the pieces, and also meeting so many other artists? I know one of the gentlemen who came was from a small town in Florida, and he walked in, and I don't think he had ever experienced maybe even an art show or an art opening that large. But he was kind of blown away, and I was like, go home and start having a show somewhere, find a community center, start wherever you can, just to start really pulling people together, to be able to look at art. And I just think it's a very powerful thing, and it doesn't happen very often in the Black community the way this particular show brought people together from many different places and perspectives. So just maybe we could talk a little bit about that experience for both of you.
Yeah, for me, like I said, it was when I walked in, like I could just feel the energy. Like it felt powerful. I felt like love. I felt respect. And I was personally just blown away just by the amount of artwork, but then just like the talent. Like it was a great show. Like there was a lot of pieces. I don't remember everybody's names, but there were a few pieces that like just caught your eye and just made you, um, want to dive into it and have those conversations about with the artists. And I was glad those artists were there just so that we could have those conversations and kind of dive into each other's work, kind of, you know, pull from each other and try to see like why you do these things a certain way or why I do these things a certain way. And it kind of just helps us grow as artists, and helps us build that community like you were talking about, Julia. And just like I said, just helps us all come together and as one. And so I just felt the love, I felt the energy. It felt great, it felt good. I'm usually not I guess like a outgoing, I guess, person or whatever. I'm usually like an introvert, but like I said, I felt the love and I felt welcomed, and everybody was super chill, and everybody was, coming together, and we were all having great conversations, and so I was just thankful to be a part of that experience. So.
Nala, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, but I feel like I'm piggybacking. It was nice to step into a space where there just wasn't like a shortage of perspective or like just scarceness. It's just everybody was, I mean, it was just nice to be in the space.
I love that, not scarce, what you just said there. The abundance of creativity in the Black community worldwide and the African diaspora is incredible. And just to us, I think the most important thing is opening up the doors, finding, a place, making sure that we're welcoming everybody and able to present art in a really beautiful way. Every time I curate a show at the center, I've said this so many times, but it always feels like a prayer or ceremony, an intention that's just so charged with life force. So I love this exhibit. I'm already looking forward to seeing who applies next year, and I hope both of you will as well. Nala, I did want to circle back to you for a moment. Over the last couple of weeks and or months since the show, you've occasionally sent me images that you're working on.
Yes.
And would you be able to talk a little bit about the new pieces you're working on and
Oh, absolutely. I have
your
them in
artist?
PowerPoint. I'm really sorry I couldn't like make that happen, and get the PowerPoint like because my computer, I don't know, it's having several issues. But so I started doing in plain air, and that's just painting while outside. And for me, I'm trying to spend time looking at subtle shifts to try to understand space more. So whenever I feel like I'm having issues or I'm coming to like, oh, sorry, a point where I don't really like understand something, I just look at it closer and for a longer amount of time. But for me, I went to the park or no California neighborhood to do a in plein air, and it's at night. So I just took time to capture subtleties of how like nighttime looks, or like what does it look like. Like I went there at 7 and it's like the summertime, so it wasn't quite 8 p.m. And it was just like moments of like capturing when the day is slowly like turning into night. And so I made that painting. And then another painting was right in front of my studio in Portland. And it's the house right next door to Portland. And there's a neighbor who lives there. Her name's Terry. But I asked, could I paint in your backyard? And I went over there, and the building behind her backyard is what I was interested in. So I took time, because what interested me was the white, like, I forgot what they're called, the wood. I don't know. It was just like a bunch of things. I'm sorry, panel like that's white. But after a couple of days of like leaving it coming back, all the panel was removed. So it was just like underneath, like just brown wood, and it was wet water damage on it. But I ended up painting that, like covering over like the painting I originally had with the white panel, and completely making something different. So in plein airs are kind of like allowing something else to happen instead of just trying to make, I don't know, like trying to make something else that's not there. So just working with what happens.
Would you like to say something also about the portrait you're working on?
Oh, okay. I was thinking about the things I sent, because I sent churches and then the portrait. So I made a portrait of one of my former classmates, and it was for his mom, but I've never met the mother before, and we've never like really talked that much in school, but we rode the bus together, me and the classmate, who had passed away in 2020. So whenever whenever I was thinking about like making a portrait, I was thinking about this specifically. Um, I was just a little nervous because once again, I never met the mother. So it was it was just on the day he died, we met and we discussed, like I told her I was making this painting, and I was trying to be just very I don't really know this person that well. I know this is like, personal. So, I wasn't trying to impose, but I was like, you know, would you want this when I'm finished? And she was like, yes. And it was just really like a nice moment of being able to reach out directly to someone and being able to like give them that. And it's not finished, so I didn't want to like, I guess, mention it yet, because I need to finish. But I was just telling her even that like it wasn't finished. That's why I was nervous, but I thought it was just more important to reach out specifically today.
I think it's I think it's good that we talk about the artist process, because every artist has their own process in creating. I had mentioned earlier that artists basically for everyone, and you have those artists that create just for the purpose of healing, and then you have artists that create because they just enjoy doing it. I mean, and then you have those that are professional artists and they have particular themes that they focus on. So it's no one kind of cookie cutter, if you will, in what art is all about. And I really feel like we try to pinpoint when we get the artwork coming in. We look at a lot of artwork, and Julie and I have very deep discussions about what we think the artist is trying to say. So for me, it's just thrilling to go through that process, because I learned so much in doing so. The other thing I want to mention too is that just as I said, art is for everyone. Those artists who are really looking at trying to quote unquote make a living at it, if you will. There's the business side of being an artist. There's all kinds of things that an artist must know about in order to promote, if they want to promote their work. And the first and foremost is making a good rendition of your artwork. Either if you have the means, hire a professional photographer. If you don't, there are a number of workshops. We have given workshops in the past for artists. For instance, we had a number of submissions that the work really looked good, but the replication of the work was just terrible. And we actually went back to the artists and asked if they would be interested in having it rephotographed, and then we can reconsider it. And we look at that as a process, but again, we didn't want that to jeopardize the artists in us selecting the artwork, but we also want this to be an educational experience for the artists. You know, and part of the reason is that we create a catalog of every exhibition that we've done. In fact, I put a list of the links to all the previous catalogs and also the current catalog in the chat. So feel free to copy those and look at examples of work that have been in the shows in the past years. And also the current show is in that link as well. So to me, that's important. Your representation of your work is really, really, really important. We've gotten calls from people who have seen the work in the catalog and they couldn't make it to the center to see the show, but they saw the work in the catalog and they liked it. They wanted to purchase the work. So representation of your work outside of the exhibition is most important. So, and then I would just say that just there's other things that artists need to look at on the business side of things. But again, it's a learning experience, especially if you're going to be dealing with galleries. There are all kinds of protocols and things that you need to understand. So if you're going to take it to that level, you really have to take it serious and look at it as a business. And many people look at artists, they don't look at artists as being business people. They're just creatives, right? In fact, you have a number of artists that are represented by agents or galleries. They don't want to get into the business side of things. I would kind of warn against that. I think you do need to have some understanding of what's happening because you don't want to put yourself or make yourself vulnerable to people taking advantage. So I'll leave it at that. I didn't know if we had questions from people. Need to check the chat.
Derek, I also wanted to touch base with you again and ask you about what's currently fueling your creative process. Do you have some new work going on that you can share with us and talk about a little bit?
Yeah. Here lately, I've been busy with a lot of commission work as of late. But as far as like personal work, I'm still working with the human figure. I'm still doing like portraiture and stuff like that. But mainly I've been in like an exploration process, you know, or a phase, I should say. Just trying to explore different medias, explore different techniques, different things that I could incorporate into my work. So like I said, it's been a lot of portraiture, a lot of, I've been doing this series, like it's kind of like monochromatic colors. So like a portrait in all blue or a portrait in all red, a portrait in yellow and stuff like that. Just kind of just playing around with like different shades, different tones, seeing what comes about with that. But I mean, that's really about it. Really, just kind of been experimenting and exploring things.
And do you have places and spaces in Lexington or in other parts of the country where you're exhibiting your work or showing it, or how is it sharing your work on social media?
Yeah, so I do a lot of sharing on social media. And it's funny because what Arkham was talking, he was talking about you know, our creative process and stuff like that. And a lot of the pictures and the photographs, like my references that I use in my work, they all come from like social media. Because like portraiture, it's all about like capturing the essence of people, um, capturing or telling the story that that you might come up with, or the story that they might have, or something like that. And so I like to use social media as a way to like pull references, find portraits of people, just because it's like it's me putting a picture out on the internet. It's like me showing the world like this is who I am type thing. You know what I'm saying? So instead of trying to photograph somebody to make it look a certain way, it's more so about them showing who they are already, and then taking that and then capturing that essence that way. Um, but yeah. But I mean, as far as like different like work and stuff that I have out, um, I've been doing like a lot of projects with like Walmart, where they put up these murals inside of Walmart. And so you could check those out. Then there's a couple spots in like Lexington. There's just like a couple different like businesses and hotels and restaurants where I've done like public murals that are on display. And then, like I said, I use social media a lot just to get my work out there. A lot of people have given me commission work just by seeing my work on Instagram or something like that. And so I definitely use social media as a tool for sure. Like Arkham was saying, it's like there's a business side to it. And so um, I try to stay on top of that. I try to, be as professional as I can when it comes to dealing with like potential clients and stuff like that. And then just representation of your work, like you said, it's very key. It's very necessary in order to, I guess, get yourself out there. Because like I said, they might see it, a picture of it online, and they're like, man, I want that. So yeah, but yeah, that's pretty much it right there.
Yeah, I'm very inspired by the way you've worked out, living as a creative and having commissions and the tattoo work and finding a way that it all works together so that you can just live that artist life. It's very inspiring, and I'm glad you're able to do that. And similarly, Nahla, I know you've had some commissions recently as well. Can you talk a little bit about that process, how those came to you and what that's like?
They were kind of random. I didn't know like the seller, but they were commissions for um like it was from the head of my department, Chris Wrights, but it was for Christy Brown. She's a collector, but she wanted two churches. One was the Cathedral of Assumption, and then the other one was Fifth Street Baptist Church. And so I did them very differently. One took place in the daytime and then the other at night. So I had one horizontal and then one vertical. I didn't know how they would turn out, honestly. I was just trying to figure out, what would work best with both of those.
And it looks like you're in your studio.
Yes, that's where I was on my way to. I'm sorry. I was supposed to be here the whole time, but my tire popped. And so I was somewhere else.
Well, I'm glad you made it. Is there anything you want to show us on a wall?
Oh, sure. So,
And then after that, we have some questions that have come through, and we'll get to those.
okay. Sorry, I'll try to like reverse. I have some things on the ground, but I'm just painting like right now. Um, or I have a bunch of recent paintings, but oh, I feel like nothing's really finished right now that I have.
Yeah, I don't want to put you on blast, but it's really fun to see the studio. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
All right, let's see. Let me get to a few questions. We've got one, not a question, but thank you for hosting this. Thank you for giving Black artists a voice. As a fellow artist myself, a musical theater, and someone who works in a museum, gives me so much joy. So thank you. And then from Macy, how do you stay inspired and maintain that discipline to create? Is it difficult? It's difficult for me at times to sit down and commit to a piece.
For me, it's just all about just even when you're not like necessarily inspired, I would still draw, still sketch, still explore things, try new mediums. If you usually paint and draw, try to do sculpture, 3D work. Um, but it's basically just kind of just experimenting sometimes, even like when you don't have a certain direction, sometimes that direction comes out of that experimentation and that trial and error process. Um, Also, sometimes you don't have to create, you know, sometimes you can sit back, watch a movie, watch some film, get inspired that way. Um, like I said, I'm not necessarily always on social media, but I scroll, you know, and I watch, you know, Instagram and stuff like that. And sometimes I may see a picture that sparks an idea or something like that. Or I look at other artwork as well. Like I follow a bunch of artists on Instagram and I try to just stay inspired that way. Just studying other creatives, studying other mediums, things like that. And so, yeah.
And Nala, we have a question from Tamara Coffee. Who were your artistic inspirations and mentors?
Sorry, I just muted. But I have Edward Hopper. I really liked um, Early Sunday Morning. Um, I had put Charles. Sorry, I'm forgetting the last name. Sorry.
It's okay.
It might be gone. The thought might be gone. Um, well, I'll just stick with Edward Hopper for now, but I like the In Plain Air and Breath in his paintings. And I feel like I just look to like past contemporary and to like old masters maybe. I still look at contemporaries though.
Yeah, thank you for that. We have someone asking, how can we get the exhibit to come to our city and what kind of space is needed, length of time for the exhibit? I believe for this year, those are already locked in, but please reach out to Mark at Kentucky Arts Council or in this feed and let us know where you are. And maybe that's a possibility for next year. We hope to have next year's exhibit travel as well. And David is asking, think of it as a new band that has a bad demo tape. You don't want that out there. Same for artists and photos of your work, of their work. I'm not quite sure if I'm representing that comment correctly. Tamara is asking for Derek, tattoo art and painting are two very different processes. Do you approach the artwork in the same way, or do you have to adapt your creative process from one to the other?
Um, I've actually been struggling with that as of not like as of late, just because, like I said, it's two completely different mediums. And early in my tattoo career, I used to like switch. I would like, you know, flip a switch. I'm tattooing, then I'm painting or I'm drawing and stuff like that. But here recently, I've tried to like mesh them all together. Because tattooing has it's kind of like been a whole new creative process to where it's like you're thinking about composition more. You're thinking about your values and your color choices and stuff like that more. Because I mean, one, it's going on skin, which is completely different from canvas or paper, and then it's there forever also. So you want to make sure you got your ducks in a row basically. And so for me, it's been a challenge of trying to like mesh those together and trying to um not necessarily separate them and know like this is drawing, this is painting, or and this is tattooing or whatever, but just try to like combine them all into one thing so that I'm not pushing and pulling myself in different directions. And so, like I said, it like tattooing has helped me, I guess, like, on like paper and canvas, I guess, just because it helps me think about composition, helps me think about flow, how the eye moves around the page and stuff like that. I thought about that stuff then, earlier before I started tattooing, but it's like really honed in now. It's like really made me like kind of like focus on that. And so, yeah, I mean, that's basically what I'm trying to figure out right now is just combining them all into one thing so that I'm not, you know, having to switch or, flip a switch or anything. It's just all flowing as one type thing. So, yeah.
And Derek, do you have any mentors or folks that inspire your work that you'd like to mention?
Oh, yeah. When I first got into like portraiture, I was studying a lot of like Chuck Close's work, just because I liked his large scale portraits, his large scale paintings and stuff like that. So I was really drawn into that, and that's what really like got me into portraiture. And then I started studying people like Barkley Hendricks, and Kehinde Wiley is another one that I've been looking at. Then there's a bunch of like new contemporary artists that I've been studying here recently, like Daniel Arsham. Um, I mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, but yeah, I would mainly say like Barkley Hendricks, Kehinde Wiley for sure. Those have been like kind of like some of my biggest influences and mentors.
And if someone doesn't know their work specifically, maybe you could say what is inspiring about the work or.
Oh yeah, they both everybody that I mentioned usually works with like portraiture, and Barkley Hendricks and Kehinde Wiley specifically, they both focus on like African Americans and capturing African American life. Barkley Hendricks is a little older. He would capture, like people like the style and the clothing from like the 60s and the 70s. There was a lot of flair, a lot of like, high fashion stuff like that, and trying to capture that through portraiture. And then Kehinde Wiley, he's more contemporary. He does like he travels all around the world, and he photographs different people of color from different parts of the world, and then he kind of paints them in like a classical stance, kind of like mimicking the old masterwork or something like that. And he'll take them and then recreate people of color in those images, just kind of going back to that whole like representation thing and being represented and being seen and stuff like that. So
Thank you for that. We've got a little bit more time. I don't see any other questions. But Aukram, do you have any other questions that are bubbling up?
No, I was just in the process of typing a note to Crystal to point out that Eugene Pools from Hopkinsville, he's the one that's doing Reflections in Black. That's going to be up until the end of July. But it's a wonderful, wonderful exhibit of quilts. In fact, it takes up 2 of our gallery spaces because the quilts are very, very large. And he's actually going to be a guest speaker at the Chamber of Commerce in Hopkinsville towards the end of June. So that saves me and not to have to type it. So you can go to the link that I provided earlier, and you can see Reflections in Black.
Nahla, you have something you wanted to add to the conversation?
I'm sorry, I just didn't mention earlier, like the mentor. My mentor, I'm in my MFA, and my mentor is Professor Priest.
And could you tell me or tell us a little bit about their work and how that is having a mentor in that way?
For me, Professor Priest does a lot of figure painting, so I usually do houses. So I mean, like it's two different things, but it's still helpful because he still understands space and how to communicate that. Um, I mean, in a way that's helpful for me. And he does figures in imagined situations to help him talk about the experiences of slaves. So he has, I need to go back to the website because he has a website that details exactly, I think maybe like where some of the situations take place.
Yeah,
I was gonna
we,
say, oh,
I was
I
going
just
to
want to
say,
say real quickly, Nahla, your painting of the front porch in the house, it feels very much like a portrait. And I think that's part of why Akram and I both responded so much to it, and others have as well, that in taking an object like a house, or it could be a tree or a part of nature or whatever, and putting that much light and life in it, where you really do feel the life and the history of that object. I feel like your work is very much portrait work as well, and very interesting in that way. And when we had the opening and you spoke about it, the porch in terms of the woman, that was quite telling as well.
Thank you.
yeah, I was going to say that, Nyla, that we actually have, next time we're at the center, please, I would like for you to come upstairs in our office area. We have a large painting that was done by Mark Priest. And he came to a show, I think Duffy had a show at our center years ago, and I had mentioned to him that we had the artwork. He said, "Oh, I haven't seen that piece since I took him upstairs." So next time you're there, please, I will show you this fantastic piece. We think it was of a place on Walnut Street, which is where the center is located. It's on Muhammad Ali Boulevard, formerly known as Walnut Street. And Walnut Street was referred to as the Harlem of the South. And this picture really captures kind of like some of the scenes that took place on Walnut Street. So, and that's the other thing too about art. Again, as I said earlier, it has a beautiful way of conveying history, and a single image can take you on a journey, because it's just packed with so much information, what have you. So I tend to be, I said I was a filmmaker. I'm a documentary filmmaker and photographer. So I tend to lean more towards the documentary end of things. And we've had quite a few pieces in the show that are documentary oriented. The piece on the skating rink is a documentary. I mean, it's basically documenting what it once existed in West Louisville on Broadway.
Sorry, I was just going to add to that. I do think the way Professor Priest works is very archival, and I do feel very inspired by that, like that he's using the way he understands how space works to communicate a history.
Absolutely.
Derek, for some reason right now, I'm remembering your website and some images that you had up of young people maybe on bicycles, and this kind of energy of being out and about, and very, well, I don't even know what to say about them, but do you know the images I'm talking about?
Yeah. I think I know which one you're talking about. It's that piece is called Cowboy actually. And that's kind of like paying a homage to like me growing up as a kid and like hanging out with my friends and just, we used to ride bikes back in the day. Bikes were our cars, that was our way of transportation, getting around and stuff like that. And so it's kind of like paying homage to that growing up and then having us like, like we're like little rodeo cowboys just riding around on our bikes, but like they're horses or whatever. And so that's kind of where that idea comes from. Just kind of like a play on that and just trying to, like I said, just document and capture history. So it was fun.
There's a lot of movement and motion in your work, and I was especially taken when we were going through our jury process of the two figures upside down, and you keep looking at it. Is this what was intended? And then these butterflies, just the unexpected and the powerful feeling of what's really possible, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I said, for that, it was, I don't know, like I said, it's going back to the whole tattoo thing and like just creating those compositions that, spark a conversation, one, and then, like just create that movement and that flow throughout the piece. And so it's mainly the whole thing, just seeing something that's not normal or something that's kind of like obscure and you're trying to figure it out. I like that stuff. I feel like it brings people in and like creates a conversation for others to have around your work and it might make them think about their work or something like that. So
Well, we just got a couple of minutes left. If either of you have anything you'd like to say about the feeling of having your work travel around the state of Kentucky.
I guess I'm a little nervous about it. Like, I don't know. Hope nothing breaks or anything.
Yes.
No, it's in good hands with Mark. Mark has done this quite a bit. This is not new to the Kentucky Arts Council. My question would be, do you plan to attend the receptions that they're going to have at the various places?
Where's the reception located?
Well, there's several. I think there's 5 exhibits in total, and Mark will have all of those details in terms of when the openings will take place. But again, that's part of the business side of arts. You got to press the flesh, you know what I'm saying, and get out there and meet people, so people put a face to the work. You'd be surprised who may be there looking at the work. And then also being at the reception, typically, not all the time, there's a gallery talk, where the artists get a chance to make some comments. And you never know who's going to be in that audience. So that's part of, the reason why we're doing this is not to get your work out there, but also to give you other opportunities to meet people in the art world, in the world of culture, to really promote your work and, your ideas.
Do you think the work is in great hands? But I totally get your feeling, Nahla, because our work is it's like our babies and is going further from home, So it's like so many artists aren't even sure about selling their work at times because,
Right.
how do you let go of it? But to let it travel is big. And I'm happy that you said yes, because both of you, for sure.
And one of the main reasons that we love this is, again, they will have an insurance retainer. Mark and Julia and myself sat down and talked in great detail about the process of moving the art around and how the art was going to be packaged, all of that. And that's another piece I wanted to say quickly because I know the time is running out. Some artists just bring their canvases to the campus when it's time to mount the exhibit. That's something that you need to, if you really you want to take care of your work, you make sure that you package that work so that when you put it out there, it's not going to be damaged. A lot of times, because the reason why it's damaged is because it's not packaged correctly. Sometimes bubble wrap doesn't do it. You know what I mean? But depends on what kind of art you're producing, right? So that's another aspect of your work that you need to really pay attention to. And that will probably lessen the anxiety.
Derek, did you want to add anything to the conversation before we close it out?
I just want to say I'm excited. You know, it's nervous at the same time too, but like more so excited about the show. You know, traveling and having the artwork just go all over the state of Kentucky. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm definitely gonna try to get out to the openings when I can, or if I can. And so I'll just keep me posted on those openings, and I'll definitely try to make time in my schedule to get out there for sure.
Well, thank you both. It's been great to have a conversation with you, and I believe Mark's going to close it out for us.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Julia and Aukram, for being willing to work with us on this. And thank you, Derek and Nahla, for sharing your stories today. It was really amazing. And thank you, audience, for joining us for the Creative Industry Summit series, celebrating the Black experience. We hope that you'll also get to experience this exhibit when it comes near you, and to experience all the expressions and emotions and media that are part of it. It's very memorable and it'll make a big impression, I'm sure. For more information, you can always visit kcaah.org. That stands for Kentucky Center for African American Heritage, and also artscouncil.ky.gov. And stay tuned for more announcements on the opening events, activities related to the exhibit. And we appreciate everyone being here today. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.